Welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond Bakari. Today I'm joined by Seangsouk Keobouthanh, who is running for Providence City Council in Ward 12. The current City Councilwoman, Kat Kerwin, isn't seeking re-election this year, which opened up the seat for this election cycle. Currently, Miss Seangsouk is going to be running against Althea Graves on that November ballot, who's the Democratic nominee. And for reference for those watching, the ward itself contains the neighborhoods of Smith Hill, downtown, parts of the east side, Elmhurst and Valley. Miss Seangsouk, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for giving me your time for this interview. I bet it's a busy campaign season right now, heading into that final stretch where I believe it's 19 or 18 days. I mean, who's counting at this point? But
I'm
less
not
than 3 weeks.
counting.
Yeah, so less than 3 weeks. So very appreciative that you're giving me your time for this to also let those watching know where you stand on the key issues. I also asked your opponent about too. It's very critical, especially local races like this. It always helps to know where the candidates stand on the issues. My first question, it's a bit of a general one. Why do you want to be Ward 12's next city councilor?
No, it's not. It didn't come to me that fast. I just saw that the neighborhood wasn't developing in the ways that the other neighborhoods in Providence were. And being here for about a decade, I've lived in my third floor triple decker. And it has its pros and has its cons. And I kept thinking, like, why the other wards or neighborhoods that I kept going to, such as the East Side, Olneyville, and the South Side, they all have better parks and better bike paths and better sidewalks, just sidewalks in general. So I was just thinking, like, I'm a mom, and at the moment, I love watching my kids. I love taking care of my kids. That's what my primary choice was. I stopped working to take care of my kids because I wanted to be the sole responsibility for them because I wanted to raise my kids and I didn't want to miss out on all the little things that they did. And the city council seat opened up, and I kept thinking to myself, like, I want to stay here and I want to stay here with my kids, but it's not feasible for the direction it's heading. And that primarily made me go, you know what, change needs to happen. It needs to happen now. And I can't wait another 4, 8 years, another term to go by for me not to stick my neck out and put my hand up in the race and get my name out there and see if I can make the change for our neighborhoods in Ward 12.
Is there a certain reason that you chose to run as an independent?
Yeah, I think for me, I was a Democrat for most of my voting years. I actually worked for Barney Frank when I was in high school for a whole year there, and then I went into Suffolk University. I studied international affairs, and I did some campaigns there, and I worked at the State House there. And I was very I was Democrat. And coming to reality in my my early 20s, there was a lot of things that I liked on both sides, and I felt like it was so divisive that we do have parties and we need a party system. I get that, but it's just so divisive that the other side doesn't want to hear about the other side. And I just it kind of struck a chord in me going, you know what? I always want to be very moderate. I always want to feel like and know like I can, register what the other side is saying. So that's how I've always lived since since I graduated college, was being a moderate. I always wanted to hear the other side. I always wanted to have two sides to one story that everyone wants to play out, and to always be the moderator for that. And I do that with my life now, with my families, with my kids, day-to-day things. And so for me, it made sense to be an independent. I did not want to be a Democrat. I didn't want to be a Republican, because I really genuinely know, like, I know both sides, I feel both sides, I hear both sides, and I can be the moderator for both.
Let's talk about some of the key issues facing the city. One of the top ones this election year is how Providence should go about ensuring public safety. It's a very hotly debated topic. For starters, there's the debate over, should we defund the police? Should we fund the police more? Or should we go in the middle and focus on ideas like community policing? Where do you stand when it comes to that conversation?
Yeah, I think it's the middle. I don't think losing money for the police department is going to help the police department do their job. That's not the responsible way. So that I get why people would think that defund the police works, but now we're seeing it years later, it's not working. And the fact of the matter is our police department resources are overextended. So we need to add more money to their resources and get more partners. They already have the partners. We got to get more, and we got to get more hirees for them. So the ride-alongs, they're beautiful and all that, but we need more people to get in more of those ride-alongs. So when there are calls from the constituents in Ward 12, it's not just a police officer showing up. It is a social service worker, whether they are certified or not, doesn't matter. It's someone there to be their aide, their partner, to feel that they can add into the situation. So if it's a noise disturbance, such as loud music, partying, domestic violence, they have an advocate. Like the police officer has an advocate to be like, you know what, I am here to protect my advocate, but my advocate is here to advocate for you and me, so we can resolve the issue, so it doesn't transpire any louder and harder. So I'm not for losing resources and money from the police departments. I'm for adding what benefits that they can add to their departments right now. And they're good people. Law enforcement are good people, and our city has many good people, but our city has its problems and they need to be tackled. And who gets called? It's the police departments. So they're very their resources are thin. So let's add on more of the community resources, NGOs, nonprofits that are already in existence, and get them the grants that they can hire people or hire their current people to do the ride-alongs and add to the work of the police department.
Staying on the topic of law enforcement for a moment, although this is more of a state issue, a lot of city council candidates have had strong opinions about it, and that's the topic of LEOBOR. For those watching, that's an acronym for the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. The different takes I've heard range from keeping it the same to some reforms to outright repealing it. How do you feel about this? Should it stay the same, reform, or repeal?
I think change is good. Change doesn't necessarily mean bad or better. Changes can be looked at when it comes to what LEOBOR stands for, but both sides need protections. The perpetrator and the law enforcement, they both need protections, and we need to look out for both parties, whether it's a crime that was committed or a crime that was said committed, alleged crimes. And I think on both parties, we need to protect the perpetrator and the victim, and we need to protect our law enforcement, and we need to protect our civilians and our constituents. So that is a very hot topic, but we do need protections for both sides. And if it has to get looked at, LEOBOR has to get looked at, then it should get looked at. But it's very hard if you're not law enforcement, and it's very hard if you're not a person that was accused of a crime that you didn't commit. So I think it takes all of us to sit down and think about that, versus striking a chord with saying he didn't commit the crime and the law enforcement didn't commit the crime, or vice versa. Like, you're wrong, you're right. It's a very hard stance to take, but both sides should have a fair trial if that came out, and we need to be proactive in understanding the needs of both sides. It can't be one versus the other. We really need to listen and think about what these crimes are and who committed the crimes and how the crimes can transpire for both parties.
So would it be fair to say reform then out of those three options?
I don't necessarily think a whole reform, but if changes need to happen, then yes.
And public safety goes beyond just policing. For example, a big issue in Providence is the rodent issues going on. I don't know entirely how it is in Ward 12. Miss Althea did say it's a bit it's very bad with the rat problem right there. And I can attest for Ward 15, it's very bad too when it comes to the rat issues. They run past your feet the second it gets dark out, and they're just all over, and it's unsafe. I'm just curious, are there any ideas you think or would favor that could help address the rodent issues?
It's never going to end, because we live in the city. Unfortunately, we live in the city, and that's what I deal with every day, is the rodent tunnels. They're tunneling in my front porch right now. They tunneled into the side barrier I made on Orm Street. I just saw a hole there. So it's a hard topic, and I think the city can do something better. I called in to ask about the abatement program, and I was told that I have to make an account in order to get someone out here. And I literally thought to myself, I'm English speaking, I read English fine, I'm second generation, but imagine my mom going, I have rodent issues, Nang Eep is not here, that's what she calls me, she's not here, she doesn't live with me, how do I deal with this? Like, I always think about myself and my mom's lens, where she doesn't read adequately, she doesn't speak English adequately, but she's fluent in 4 different languages. So I always think about my mom when it comes to these issues, and it's so difficult because I literally went to the website and I was like, huh? I got to make an account. I got to do this and that just to get someone out here. Like, that's not fair. Like, I got to literally remember my password to get into this account again to see if they came. It's just ridiculous. So I did that approach of what I do. I always talk to my neighbors. I'm like, hey, do you mind, getting new trash bins because you have no covers on them? Literally, my neighbor doesn't have trash bin covers, but but it's a property management that's owned by a company who owns 100 other buildings that I heard of. So I'm dealing with that right now currently. So I know about this rodent issue, and plus that mosquitoes are huge here because it's just lingering everywhere in water, and they're the black and white mosquitoes. So they bite day and night, doesn't matter what time. And I actually stopped having my kids go in the backyard, little backyard space we have. And I was like, we're not getting bit. Like, we'd come in with welts, like all of us would come in with welts. So the process of getting help, their abatement program needs to be easier. It needs to be more effective for people that don't read English and don't speak English, don't read English, including myself, like, who had to make an account and I didn't even finish the account because they asked me several questions. It should be, hey, like, a request came in, okay, we'll contact them again, and then we'll make a visit and say, okay, these are the areas that we think they're coming in. What are areas that you think they're coming in, and work it out that way. And I know that that's probably funneling more money into that program, but it's okay because once you fix the problem, hopefully that problem will work itself out with all the neighbors that now know how to deal with it. I just don't think the problem was dealt with. So we got to fix the problem and have everyone know how to get on board. And then hopefully it will minimize the rodents.
Moving on to education, on that same November ballot on November 8th, there's also going to be a question asking voters in the city if they approve or reject the plans for a hybrid school board. For those watching, that's half elected and half mayor appointed. Currently, all 10 of them are appointed by the mayor, no matter where they are in the city or their qualifications. The mayor can just pick all 10. How do you feel about that proposal with the hybrid school board?
Yeah, I think the hybrid school board sounds good to me. I don't see a problem in it. I think that there needs to be more representation within the different wards in Providence. I don't think it should be fully elected by our mayor. The mayor doesn't know everyone in Providence. So whatever mayor gets elected doesn't know everyone in Providence. They don't. So it's nice to know that, like, there is a recognition that people of the people want to represent us. And it's not fair that it just gets elected because you're in that field, or you know someone in that field and they felt like you were the right person to do it. So I think I would be for a hybrid model, especially people like myself who are moms, who are fathers, who are single parents, who are dual parents that want to be involved more.
It's certainly a big topic outside of the schools, the decision making outside of the schools. A topic that's big when it comes to what's going on in the schools is should there be a presence of SROs? For those watching, that's school resource officers. When you have the police officer inside the school, so if there's like a scuffle going on, they're there to break up the situation. What are your thoughts on that? Should there be SROs in schools?
You got to understand, I grew up in high school with SROs, so that was a normalcy for me, and I felt protected because even though there weren't many fights, I actually middle school. In middle school, we were at a lunch table, and one of my friends at that time, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade, she literally just got assaulted. A girl came at her. We were laughing at the table, and she came at her and started beating her up. And we as kids had to, like, break it up. We're like, what's going on? What's going on? Teachers had to break it up. And we didn't have an SRO in middle school. And so that situation really kind of made me go, wait a minute, I know why there needs to be presence of security, because as a 12-year-old, what do? You don't know what to do. So in high school, we had SROs in my high school. So I'm for that. I think the protection safety of our students, of our kids, of our neighbors is well worth hoping that we can embed that an officer at our school is not there to disrupt our lives. They're there to aid and help us. And I hope that the officer, the law enforcement presence will build that community connection, saying, I'm here for you. I want to work for you. I'm your public safety. And there needs to be a building block for that. And what better way than in schools to build that relationship of security and safety versus the scrutiny and, scaredness. So I'm for that. And I'm someone who has dealt with police presence in her early years of life too. So trust me when I say police officers are scary, but once you get to know them, they're not scary.
And it's a whole interesting dialogue to have too about that topic, especially when you have to consider. I mean, if there's no SRO, it's up to the teacher to break up that scuffle, and the teacher is very limited in what they can do because there's a lot of rules like how they're allowed to break up that said scuffle. It's a very very interesting dialogue that I look forward to hearing more about. As
Can I bring this up? So
yeah,
the reason why that girl assaulted my friend at the lunch table out of nowhere was because she thought we were making fun of her brother. We were just schoolgirls, preteens laughing, and she thought that we were making fun of her brother because we were all like raising our hands being preteens. And she was like, my brother is special needs. So her mental health wasn't all there, and she thought we were making fun of her brother. We never knew her brother. We were just laughing at each other, like being little schoolgirls in middle school. I don't know, talking about Backstreet Boys. I have no idea what we're talking about, but we're talking about something. I was laughing. Maybe someone said something to their crush, and she just resonated that with we're making fun of her brother. And that's what happened. She went over and flipped my friend off the chair and beat her up.
it's certainly a multi-layered issue that you have to look at from all angles. It's definitely something that I can imagine will probably be talked about as the next session starts for the city council. Those are just two topics that we could talk about when it comes to education, but the topic itself is just very nuanced. There's the issue of school buildings, what role charter schools should have. So instead of me just asking like one after another, I know each council candidate are going to have their own priorities when they get elected. What are some of those educational reforms you would prioritize if elected?
There's not necessarily a reform that I'm gonna pinpoint, be like, this is the do it diet. Like, we need to do it to make our schools better. It's just having confidence in parents in general. Families and parents are not confident in the Providence school systems, and I can't blame them. And it is terrifying to think that my son will go into kindergarten next year and not know exactly what he will be entering. So there needs to be a built-in confidence for students, parents, families, whoever the caregiver of that student is going to school. We need to have better confidence in the Providence school system, and then we don't have that, and that's sad. That is sad, and that is one of the main reasons why I said to myself, like, if I don't help change it for the future of my kids, who I've basically dropped out of society to raise my kids, because being mom is very difficult. It's not easy. And I can imagine a single working mom. I was doing part-time work, and I was feeling the mom guilt, and I was feeling embattled with myself, not feeling confident that I was being, Seangsouk Keobouthanh. So being a parent is difficult enough, and thinking that they're going to go put them in a public school system that is not going to be the right direction for the child is very discouraging. So whatever needs to happen needs to happen. And we all need to go to the table and recognize that these are what parents and families are feeling and thinking, and do the right thing. Put the politics aside, put the egos aside, and know what's right for the kids of our future.
These next two I have are questions that I've been asking every council candidate I've had on because they could be relevant topics if you end up getting elected in November. The first one is relating to committees. Is there a certain committee you would prefer to be on if elected?
Whatever they think is good for me. I'm just for working for my ward. That's it. Like, whatever people think I'm good for, that would be great. I think the DPW would be nice too, because that's what stirred the pot for me, was just the basic needs of my neighborhood, my neighbors not being met. Days off of work because we couldn't get out of our driveway because it wasn't getting plowed. Come on, like that's horrible. Like, we pay taxes, our renters pay taxes. Like, we need to get plowable streets so we can move, especially people that are considered first responders. Like my husband, he doesn't have a day off. When there's a snowstorm, he doesn't get stuck with me and get into Netflix and chill. He has to go work. Like, he has to go work to make a living for us. We're a single income house with, I live in a multifamily, and I rent to my family and friends. So I'm not this person that can just have him forgo a couple of days off of work, because that means, the time that he actually can take off for special occasions, he can't. So I hear that throughout the ward when I'm walking, my street's not plowed. I'm like, wait a minute, you're literally a two-way street off a main road. I'm a one-way street off a main road, and you're not getting plowed. Like, that actually blew my mind, that people who have more traction on their street are not getting plowed. So DPW might be a good committee for me.
And just to add on to that, the street plowing, that point about street plowing, I often don't like to insert myself into the topics, but I mean, it's a bit anecdotal. I can't speak for the whole city, but the last time we had a bad snowstorm, my road was just still full of snow, and it was probably the busiest one out of like the four streets going this way. I mean, it's the most cracked road too, and it still hasn't been fixed. I'm kind of going on a tangent, but
no, but that's the tangent that we need, because that's the conversations that, like, I thought it was just me. I was like, oh, it's our street because we're a one way, and I'm next to Carroll Towers. He plows, they plow. Whoever the person is plowing, they're plowing, but they stop at right dead center off their Carroll Towers exit. And I'm like, come on, you work for the city, like just plow a little bit more. And we don't get plowed. Like, that's what I do, and I take pictures and I send it. I'm like, look at this is crazy. Like, they get plowed, we don't get plowed. Like, the two disparities. Like, you work for the city, work for all of us. I know that it's not part of your job because it's not Carroll Towers, but it's Winter Street, and you guys haul down my street to come to get to your houses and highways. So it's just being helpful, and it's not helpful that your street's not being plowed. It's not.
Going on to my next question that I've been asking every council candidate, it was a bit different before because we didn't know who was going to be council president. We just knew there was going to be a new one since council president Igliozzi's term limited. Currently, it's expected to be Ward 13 City Councilwoman Rachel Miller, who's expected to be next council president. I believe she called the caucus and got 10 people to sign on. But in the case that you do get elected, would you support her, or is there anybody else in mind that you'd support for that role?
I'm a person to person. Like, I don't want to say I'm going to support her when I don't even know her. And to me, that's very like high school governance programs, whatever you want to call it. So it's a person-to-person thing. If I were to vote for her, it would be for a reason, because I got to know her. We met. I see her values. I see her vision for the city. I'm not going to hop on a bandwagon because 10 other people vote for her. So call me different. That's fine. I like to know people. So I'm readily available. Dunkin' Donuts right there. I carve out some time. We can have coffee dates, hopefully when I get elected, and get to know each other. And I will decide that. But I've always been very different like that. I've never been a person that says, oh, because that popular person got voted, I'm going to vote for them. And people might not like that, but that's okay, because everyone's different, and that's okay. We want to embrace diversity, and to have a voice in this, it matters. So if whoever is 1, 2, 3 for city council president, that's great. I would love to get to know them.
And my final question, it's a bit of a non-political topic. I always like to end with this question and take a step away from the political issues that are facing our city and even state as a whole if I'm interviewing somebody that's running for statewide. In your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
Well, coming from Southeast Mass, I knew Providence was the mall. So whenever a parent or a friend's parent could take us, we'd go to Providence State Mall. And then secondary was the water fires, because that was like the elusive water fires at nighttime. That'd be so cool to go to. So water fires and Providence Place Mall. So it'd be go to the mall, shop, eat at Cheesecake Factory, and then go hit up the Water Place park area. Whether an event was going on or not didn't matter. I have pictures of me and my teenager friends playing in front of Water Place Park after hitting the mall. So we have such great assets in Providence, and we need to be able to have our residents use it. And that's been my platform of why is it just all tourists getting to use it? That's great and all, because they give us tourism money. They give us, that asset, but also there needs to be more involvement with, especially Ward 12, about kids not ever getting to see a water fire when they live down the street from it. So I think for me as a council woman, if I were to be elected, I would love to do events to get neighborhood kids to walk together to the water fire, because that's for me what Providence is, water fire. And I'm glad it was brought back. I'm so happy that was brought back, and it got scrutiny because, the governor gave money, but it's fine because that's what I knew Providence for, was the Providence Place Mall and the water fires.
Yeah, and a lot of people even from outside of New England know Rhode Island because of
Mhm.
Providence and then because of water fire. I agree with
Yeah.
you wholeheartedly on that. And it sounds like those must have been some fun times going to the mall, Cheesecake Factory, and then water fire. That sounds like those must have been a really
I
fun.
felt way cooler back then than I do now. I go there, I'm like, oh, I feel old. Like, I can't climb and walk like I used to.
Miss Seangsouk, I want to thank you so much for giving me your time for this interview. I really appreciate having you on.
Thank you for inviting me to interview with you.
Absolutely, anytime. And thank you for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future episodes as soon as they're posted on this channel, please click the subscribe button down below and the post notification bell icon to the right of it. I'm Raymond Bakari, and I'll see you on the next episode.